Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition, Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night. It's the 29th of August. It's 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9 Eastern, 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific. If you got this any other time than that, you caught it on our live channel. Hang tight. By the way, all the live programs are there if you want to go back and listen to them. But if you don't, that's okay. Hang tight. We'll get started here in just a second. TJ Huddleston is with me, and we'll be spending some time together. TJ, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here again. I think it's been 8 months since the last solo one. We were on 3 months ago with Seth and Gavin, but
yeah, you said that in pre-show, and I was like, it's been that long. But you've been busy, right? You've been doing some stuff. We'll talk about that here in the show. But thanks for you reached out and you're like, hey, I got some stuff to catch up on, and it's great to have you and Gavin and Seth on here 3 months ago. But good to have you back and catch up on some of the things that are going on in the new place.
Yeah, definitely. It's been I think when I first joined your show here, we were like 4 or 5 months into the new house. So a lot of stuff has changed since then, and we'll probably talk a little bit about those projects going into it.
We will. Yeah, don't give it away. What do you we always do a pre-show pour, so to speak. What refreshment do you have on tap for tonight?
So this is there's a local brewery called Seven Sun. They have a series called Kitty Paw, which is a seltzer series. This is the pineapple tangerine. So pretty good. We have Seven Sun. They've been a sponsor of some of our tech events in the past.
Really?
So I got 4 cases of beer out of the last event. So
that's not bad.
Not a bad little deal there, you know.
No, maybe I ought to start reaching out to some of the local distilleries here in town and saying if they want to do some.
So Seven Sun actually has a really good deal for events. So we resell the beer and then we use the money to fund the organization and everything. But they just provide the beer and then you take back whatever you didn't use and they charge you the difference.
Oh, that's not bad.
So nothing out of pocket.
That's a good deal. That's a good deal. Joe's checking in. He says, good evening, all. Good to see you. Tim's checking in. It's good to see you, Tim. Thanks for coming out. Gavin, I said hi to Gavin already. Oh, there he is. He's checking in. Brian was checking in a little bit earlier. If you're listening on the live stream, go ahead and check in. We'd love to hear from you. Good to see you there. I've got a little Town Branch rye whiskey tonight. This is one of my faves that I pull out from time to time and pour into the glass. And so Kentucky straight rye. It's 50.3, bottled in October of 21. So it's been sitting a little while. And this Town Branch is one of those sleepers. It doesn't get whiskey hunted. By the way, Ohio, TJ, where you're at, whiskey hunting capital of the world, I think.
Oh yeah.
Lots of
people around here go crazy for it. So I'm not a liquor or hard drink person. I like beer and seltzer, and that's kind of it. But everybody here around here loves it. We have bourbon clubs that cost a lot of money per month and everything. But people are always looking and waiting for the next drop. It's like sneakers. That's like, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's a drop and people go around looking for it.
Allocated. They're always looking for the allocated stuff, right? Kind of thing. Yeah, I hear all the time. I watch the YouTubers and I'm like, oh yeah, in Ohio. I think Ohio is state runs the liquor stores. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're separate buildings, but they can be inside other places. It's not like as bad as Canada gets.
Yeah. New Hampshire, I think, is also that way. And so you get a little bit of that, there isn't secondary price gouging that goes on in that space. And so in the last 4 or 5 years, as the whiskey boom has gone on, I think we're actually at the end of it, to be honest. I went into one of our big box stores and they had a bottle of Blanton's, which I haven't seen in 4 or 5 years locally. And they had one. I didn't buy it, but they had one there. And I was like, oh, well, there's a sign of maybe the whiskey boom is over. And, but yeah, I always hear things about Ohio. So I need to make that trip. I have a brother-in-law lives out there in Cleveland.
Oh, really?
And, I need to make the trip out there more often. It's not that far.
It's not a terrible place to be. There's worse states out there.
No, it's nice. I liked Ohio. It's green.
Yeah.
It seems like you're in the country everywhere. It's like, I always feel like in Ohio, no matter where I go, you're in the country. It just feels, there's no sidewalks. There's no even in the city, it feels a little country in
Yeah.
Ohio. Yeah. And my wife's from there, so we've got family out there. Andy's checking in. Andy, good to see you. Thanks for coming out. Trying to watch from work. It's okay. We're recording it as well. So Andy, if you miss anything, we'll have it as well. We'll get started here in just a second. Thanks for coming out. Good to see you guys. Tim, Andy, Joe, Brian, and Gavin checking in a little bit. I haven't seen Ken yet, which has been a little weird. He's usually here by now. And Brian says he's going to be visiting Cleveland for a business trip next.
Nice.
Yeah, I like the Cleveland area. I mean, it's middle America, right? I mean,
I feel like once you've been to one major city in the Midwest, you've kind of been to them all.
Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, kind of.
They have their own little charm, but
they're
all very similar.
They do. Kevin Schoonover's checking in. Kevin, good to see you. And a good evening to you. Kevin, I haven't had you on in a while. So if you've got some updates to do or some things to chat about, reach out to me. I've got some open dates. We'd love to have you on there. So, all right, TJ, I think it's time to kick it off. Let me do this thing and we'll get into some of your new stuff. All right, here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 620 with guest TJ Huddleston, recorded on August 29th, 2024. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Carlson, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a stormy Bellevue, Nebraska. We've been talking about power outages and backup generators for the last 2 weeks. I don't think I'm going to need it tonight. I think it's mostly gone through. TJ, you live here in the Midwest. We went from 90 to 70 in an hour as a thunderstorm came through. You know the deal, right? That's the heart of the Midwest, right?
Yeah, our weather has been everywhere this week. I mean, it was cold earlier in the week, and now it's been hot as heck. So I'm not really sure what's going on in my direction. But typical Midwest.
We're sending some cool weather your way. It always seems like you're Dave Jackson, good friend of the show, and he's out there I don't think he's too far from you. Actually, you're out in the Columbus area. I think he's near Dayton in that area. His weather is always 24 hours or so. Like we have it here, you guys get it in Ohio about 24 hours later. So
yeah, that makes
sense. We're sending some cooler weather your that way. We're also sending some world-class show notes. I don't know how many there'll be tonight, but you can check them out at theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. If you're one of those, thank you for what you do every single month. You can join the Patreon team, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. Whether you give 1 month or many of you have been given forever. Appreciate that. Again, if you want to join that team, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. And then a big thanks to our Amazon folks. You guys have really picked up the pace on using the link on the website. If you go to theaverageguy.tv, upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says, as an Amazon associate, I earned from your qualifying purchases. To support the network, click here. If you click there, it'll take you right into Amazon. Just before you go on Amazon, if you want to support the network, you don't have to. But if you just want to do it, you don't need to do anything else. Go to theaverageguy.tv, click on that link. It'll take you there. Many of you have started doing that. The purchases have doubled in the last month or two since I've been letting you know it's there. I appreciate you guys doing that. Thanks for doing that. It helps support the network. Uyghur talked about, and Ed Sullivan called it UyghurNet last week as he talked about putting up this mesh-tastic network in his neighborhood. And of course, all those things help when you purchase through Amazon. So thanks for doing that as well. Big thanks to Mike Uyghur, who joined me last week. Mike, appreciate you. He's coming back in October. I think October 10th, we have him scheduled. So you want to join us there as well. TJ Huddleston is joining us again this week. Of course, TJ is a big part of HomeTech.fm. TJ, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here. I can't believe it's been 8 months since I was on here last solo. I know we were on here 3 months ago with Seth and Gavin, but it's always nice to be back on here. And there's been a lot that's changed since then. So
good to have you. That means we can talk trash about Seth for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
And he's busy with Cedia next week anyway, so he's never going to hear this episode.
Good. Well, we can talk trash about Seth. Gavin, we'll cut him some slack.
We'll talk trash about him too.
He's doing
That's
okay.
Fine.
what's new over there at hometech.fm? You guys, what are you guys covering over there?
Well, we've been having a lot of interviews recently. I've always wanted to have a radio show where I interviewed people. And so it's kind of nice to organize those interviews, and we get to talk to a lot of interesting people. We've had one of the founders of Zooz. Zooz is a manufacturer of Z-Waves devices. Agnes was on the show from Zooz. We've had several other interviews that I think are definitely worth checking out. So that's been really fun, and we got several more in the lineup. So
sweet. Hometech.fm. You can head out to the website, get subscribed to it. They're a weekly show. It's a lot like this one. I think it's better actually in a lot of ways. You guys get super nerdy on there. You talk a lot about the processes behind it. We're kind of high level here. So if you want the details, head over there, get subscribed. You should have it on as a regular listening podcast over there at HomeTech. Even though we can talk trash about Seth, you could still go over there and listen to it. HomeTech.fm. TJ, we left you 8 months ago, and you alluded to it last time you were on a little bit, but you've bought a new place. Of course, you've been outfitting it with tech.
Everything.
Talk a little bit about first year in the new house. Like, what stands out to you as what are some of the projects you've been working on that bring home tech into your new place?
So the biggest thing really for me at this point is lighting control. Everybody, I think when they think of home automation, they think of smart lighting, whether it's smart light bulbs or smart switches. And I've kind of taken that to the next level. So with Home Assistant, that's the hub I use for everything. They have an integration called adaptive lighting. And adaptive lighting is pretty cool because it'll actually change the color, temperature, and the brightness of your lighting as the day goes on. And so if you wake up early in the morning and the lights turn on, it'll be maybe 20% brightness. It'll be that really low 2700K color. And so you're not getting super blinded in the morning. And then as the day goes on, the light changes to white. It gets a little brighter. And then it progresses through the day, kind of like what the sun does naturally. And so that's what I've really been focusing on since, I would say, the past 6 months. When I moved into the house, I just put smart switches everywhere. I was like, that as long as I can dim and turn off the lights, that's all I care about. Yeah. But I've put smart light bulbs everywhere with my smart switches. Yeah. And so now I get that kind of extra touch with lighting control. And I really don't touch my light switches that much.
Seth, Seth, I got Seth on my mind. TJ, sorry about that. TJ, for folks moving into a new place, or say I don't have any smart lighting. Right. You mentioned that as a benefit, you get kind of total control over the temperature. You got to have the right kind of lighting to get that done. But what other benefits do you see? I mean, if you were trying to convince somebody living in an older home where you got to kind of retrofit some of those kinds of things, what other things that you're looking for in smart lighting that have made a difference for you?
Yeah, so I have a home automation business as well. So I help clients with this stuff all the time. And I always tell people the biggest pain points for lighting that I think that everyone should tackle is exterior lights. Go for your exterior lights first, because most people want their porch light or their driveway lights or their patio lights to turn on every night, so that way they can see if they let the dog out or they just want to go outside, take trash out, or whatever it is. And so I always say start with those pain points and then move inward, move into the kitchen, move into the living room, maybe the bedroom. So that way, if you get into bed, you don't want to get up to physically turn the lights off. You don't have to do that. And so I think you can start with a very simple point of view, which is what I did. I just went in and put smart switches everywhere. I didn't really think anything else of it. And you still get the benefits of it. And, exterior lights I think are the best example, because I never even look at my exterior lights. They just do everything automatically.
Yeah. And I put mine on the outside are not necessarily smart from a control standpoint. They are motion sensing, so I can turn them on. Yeah, they turn it on and off that way, which works for me. Did you stay with a single, one of the things that's crazy about lighting, and especially now, there are 1,000 different options, it seems like, with smart lighting. Did you try to stay in one company, so to speak, on one app, so to speak, whatever that is? Mm-hmm. Or did you spread it across? Talk a little bit about your decision-making process on putting smart lighting in?
Yeah, so yes and no. It would have been easier if I would have chose the same thing originally, but I didn't have that. The biggest difference for me really came down to using smart bulbs with my smart switches. Whenever you do that, you kind of want them to be the same protocol because it just makes everything work a lot easier. And so the issue I run into now is that in some places I have Z-Wave switches and I have Zigbee light bulbs, and you can control them with each other, but it adds another layer of complexity to it. Whereas if I just had Zigbee switches and light bulbs, it would be easier. And so this is all very nerdy stuff. Most people are not going to use smart bulbs with smart switches. And you don't have to for the most part.
Yeah. For the average guy, so to speak, if you were starting over and you were is there a brand you would be loyal to? Is in all the things that you've learned? You know, if I was starting tomorrow, I'm like, I'm going to start putting these things in. Is there a brand you'd go with? You find one more helpful for the other than how would you do that?
Yeah, I would. There's 3 brands that I would really tout as friendly, and rated on complexity, right? So if you just want to get some smart lighting, you're not very techy, or maybe you just don't want to play with the tech side of things. Lutron Caseta is always a good option. A little more pricey than a normal switch. I mean, some of these switches you can buy a 3-pack for like $40. Lutron switches are $30 to $60 each, and so you pay a little bit of premium for them, but they just work great all the time. If you're tech savvy, you're running Home Assistant or Habitat or Smart Things, Inovelli light switches and Zooz light switches are really good. And I have all 3 of those in my house right now.
TJ, I went the route of just putting in smart light bulbs as opposed to doing lights and switches. What's the benefit of having both? I would think I can control the lighting there. I've got some switches that I never touch. They just do their thing. But for you, what was the benefit of having both?
It's really the physical control. You know, when you do smart bulbs, you almost always lose the physical control. And so if somebody comes over to the house, I don't want to explain to somebody how my light switches work. And when you do smart bulbs, a lot of times you have to block off the old light switch. You have to install another keypad next to it that controls the smart bulbs. And so for me, it was like simplicity. When we walk into the kitchen or walk into the living room, if the lights don't turn on automatically for some reason, or we just want to turn them off manually, we can do that without pulling out our phone.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important, especially if you're designing a system that other people are going to use. Like if you're just by yourself and you live in an apartment or dorm or something by yourself, go all out. Just do whatever you want. But I think if you live with other people, you need to make sure that you keep those physical controls, because that's what everybody knows. Everybody knows how a light switch works.
Well, the lighting, this is, you can correct me, but I think the lighting is the easiest thing to change without, because, a switch is going to require a little bit of wiring, right? Mm-hmm. You have to go in, figure that out. Do you have the right wiring for it? Is it older? I'm in an older house. I'm in one of those weird spots where not every switch has a ground. And I know they make switches for both grounded and ungrounded, right? I had a bad experience with switches early on, and it just didn't work for me. And I got kind of spooked by them. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm just going to go with lights and let the A-lady, control for me. We're an Amazon house here. I'm going to let that control it. That has worked out actually pretty well. We have a living room zone. I have to be honest though. I've been doing this a while now. When I go to work, sometimes I walk in rooms and I want to say, "Hey lady, turn on the lights," right? And of course it's not wired to do it that way. But I have found lighting, the bulbs are the easiest way to go. Sarah bought some bulbs, she was like, "Hey, these are fine, right?" And they were whiz, whatever, right?
Oh yeah.
And but I do find I have 3 or 4 apps. The Home Assistant brings it together. And Amazon kind of does a pretty good job with it. But I do find for me here, I don't want to replace the switches. I just kind of want the lights to go in, and then I'll let Amazon can kind of control. I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, and that's the great thing about home automation, right? Is you can build it however works best for you and what you want to do. And I don't think there's any wrong way to do home automation. I think as long as it works for everybody in the house, then it's correct,
Do you think you'd start with lights and then maybe go to switches if listen, I completely understand your situation.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of guests, but if you had a lot of guests and they're trying to turn the lights on and off,
Yeah.
that
Or
might be
kids and stuff. I mean, maybe not kids. I
yeah,
don't know, but yeah,
yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah. My kids have kind of figured out, they don't live here anymore, but they kind of figured out, like,
Mm-hmm.
they'll be like, "Hey, how do I?" And you're like, "Oh, just tell
Yeah.
the lady to turn it on. It'll come on." The other thing, things like we have a litter box light that turns on at sunset, comes on, and it just illuminates the litter box for the cat. I'll
It's
be
nice.
honest, I think the cat could find it without without a light. Their eyes are pretty good with it, but we
Usually,
we
yeah,
turn on the light anyways.
that's nice.
Front door light on the inside gets eliminated automatically. We got those on timers. I think that's actually, for me, the major benefit of lighting with home automation. Do you have a lot of your lights on timers or on events or on scenes? Kind of depends on the who's writing the software is what they call those. But are you using those automations often?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I don't want to touch things most of the time, and
Yeah.
so all of our lights, basically, what I've done is I've created an automation for each room. But we have motion detectors in each room, and typically in the larger rooms, I have several motion detectors because I want that instant light turn on, like as soon as I walk into a section of the room. And so what we've done is that if there's no activity detected in any of the rooms for 5 minutes, it automatically turns the lights off in those rooms. And then all the other ones are time based as well. So if it detects motion, they turn on for 5 minutes. And then when they stop detecting motion for 5 minutes, it'll turn off. So most of the lights, and there's a couple issues you got to work out here and there, but most of our lights we're not touching unless we want that manual control for some reason.
Yeah. I have a room that I want to go into that's like that. It's got a ceiling fan, and it's a couple years old, so it's got a remote that sits in the light, where the light switch is. The remote is there now. I don't find it terribly convenient to push that button
Mm-hmm.
type thing, and I find myself wanting to say something. Although, as I hear you talking, I might go with a more motion sensing. Like, I may get I don't need a lot of light in there. I just want a light to come on when I come in. And so maybe I'll look for a motion sensing light, but that could also be controlled. So it would turn on by motion, but turn off by voice.
Yeah.
Right. Something like
Yeah.
that.
And that's how I want to think about it. We don't use voice as much anymore, but voice for me is kind of like a manual override, just like a switch is. I don't want to, when you set everything up by motion, hopefully it works most of the time, and you're really not adjusting anything.
Yeah, but the thing I hate about
motion's not perfect though. Obviously,
Yeah.
there is issues with motion, and
I have motion at work, and sometimes if I'm, I'd be sitting still for a while, and then it goes off, and then you're like, you're waving your arms to get it back on, right? Kind of
yeah.
thing.
Well, that's why I've gone with multiple motions in every room, which obviously isn't the best solution either.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of my rooms we have 3 or 4 motion detectors just because I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, lighting's only one aspect of it. What else in the new space that you're in? What else have you put in that has been home automation-ish?
Well, I've been trying to automate everything that I don't want to do. And so for me, one of the first things when we got the house is we wanted to put some raised garden beds in. And I like gardening. I don't have the time to water the plants 2 or 3 times a day though. And I just kind of I like that part to be automatic. And so this year we got 3 raised garden beds, and I did some very basic drip irrigation. We don't have an irrigation system at our house, but I got these little hose timers. I don't know if you've seen them before, but they make all kinds of different versions, Bluetooth and mechanical timer and all that good stuff. And they just turn on the hose for a specific amount of time. And I had one of those that I hooked up to my automation system. Worked great. It watered, all 5 areas of the garden all at the same time. But the problem with that is that you waste a lot of water because not everything needs all that water at the same time. And so I actually got sent this device, and we're probably going to have them on the show here in the next month or 2. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, share your screen. I'll throw it up for you. You bet.
Let's see. So this thing, I just found this thing like a month ago. I'm super excited for it. It's not officially out yet. I think they're going to release it next year. So here we go. So this thing is called the Aquaflower. And for those that have done irrigation before, typically what you'll do is you have your water coming into an irrigation controller, and then the controller manages everything, and that's how you actually water the different zones and everything. If you don't have an irrigation system, though, you basically have to use those hose timers that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
This kind of takes that to the next level. It's kind of the in-between product. So this takes a hose and takes it into that box you see there, and then it splits it into 6 different zones, just like an irrigation controller. And so for somebody like me who doesn't have an existing irrigation system, and I got quoted one to get installed, Jim, $5,000.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, this house is
Yeah,
not worth an
yeah,
irrigation
right.
system. I can tell you that.
Right,
So
right.
this thing is $200. I think it's $230 normal price or whatever. $200 though, just takes a hose and you have 6 different watering zones. And so I just got this a month ago. So it's right at the end of the season, unfortunately. But now with this, I can individually water the different zones and actually control how much water each garden bed is getting.
TJ, you live in the same kind of climate I do, which it gets really warm in the summer. It gets really cold in the winter. Are you finding this is the thing. I'd love to use drip irrigation. I just don't want to take it down every winter.
That's what I don't know. I don't know yet if I have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they're like 1/4-inch lines. So I feel like I could probably just like whip the water out of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
The other thing is I need to have both hose bibs, where it comes out of the house. I need to have those replaced with frost free.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to hire a plumber to do that. Just come in, replace those 2, just get a quote.
Yeah.
It'll be way more expensive than it needs to be, but I'll find a plumber.
Then you don't have to worry about it though, because that's what we did when we moved in the house.
Yeah.
And we had these old ones, and I was like, I want a water shut off behind them, and I want frost proof.
Yes.
They've obviously been fine for decades, but who knows?
But that's been for the traditional drip irrigation for the roses or for the, hibiscus or for the hydrangeas or for those kind of plants that do require that. I don't want to tear it out and put it back in every single year. Have you thought through that?
I think you could just blow them out. That's what I hear with normal irrigation lines. And so I assume I can just do this with this. So depending on the area, some of my lines are buried, but most of them are just ran above the ground. And then kind of nature has just claimed them. And so I think I could just blow them out with air just like they normally do. And I think I'll be fine.
Yeah. Tim says that I think they'd be fine if they just drain the system. Listen, I have been doing this long enough in the Midwest. You put plastic, rubber, anything out in those conditions, and one harsh winter, and those lines burst the next year. They're not designed to take that kind of cold that we get here. It just takes, last year we had -20, which was pretty severe.
A little cold at that rate.
Didn't last forever, but it's enough that anything close to the ground, it's going to freeze pretty solid. Yeah. And you kind of got to get those lines underground. It's been what's kept me from doing drip irrigation here in where I'm at. I've kind of found this year, I just picked up a wand that is very, it's a big
super extended one and everything like that.
Super extended. Yeah. You turn it on, super, super soft watering. I go down the line, just kind of water everything softly and treat those plants with some water. I have a neighbor, I shouldn't say this out loud, but I have a neighbor whose irrigation system waters into my yard. So I planted a few more plants.
There you go. Yeah, I might as well. I mean, it's free water.
Yeah, no, right on.
You want it to go to waste?
Oh, right on. I wanted to soak up that goodness.
Yeah.
Those plants love that, by the way. So yeah, that's been my only hesitation, because I'd love to get in a spot every time Gavin's on. Gavin's obsessed.
Oh man, he loves his irrigation system. That's what really got me started on it, because it's one of those things that I just thought, foolishly, I just thought that I had to manually water my plants every day.
Yeah.
And then he's always talking about his lawn and watering and everything. And I'm like, I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what led me down the path. And then once I got the $5,000 quote, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah. No, DIY is a little cheaper there.
I don't need that.
Do you think Gavin says, as long as you remove the water, you're good? And that's true. But Gavin, well, he's in a cold weather climate. He knows this.
Yeah.
Some of those plastics don't hold up. Yes, they're plastic, but they just don't hold up to the cold weather like you think they should. They all get brittle and Correct. And yes, he does say, I think he says this, if they do break, it's cheap to fix. And that's true.
That's true, especially if you wait till the end of the season and you buy them all from Menards. So every time, so I go to Menards way too often.
Oh yeah,
and right now they have all the drip irrigation stuff on clearance, obviously, because it's the end of the season. And so I buy hose and adapters and everything every time I'm there because I'm like, it's $4, $5, $6 off. So
yeah, no, it does.
And they're relatively cheap anyway. Honestly, the drip irrigation stuff is not bad priced. I think you could buy like 100 foot of like the 1/4-inch tubing for $20 normally.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really not expensive.
It's not terrible.
It's just the initial setup that is ridiculous. And
the reason go ahead.
The reason that it's so expensive too is I don't know how it works anywhere else. I don't even know if this is how it probably works here. But when they do the proper irrigation system, they have to install a separate water meter and a backflow preventer and all that stuff. So that's where a lot of the cost is coming from, is all the initial plumbing work.
Yeah. Does that device, does it act as a backflow? Because that's a big deal here as well.
That I don't know. Just don't tell the city on me.
Yeah, no, right. Well, I mean, in theory, it's a device you're removing in the winter.
Yeah.
It's not permanently installed. I mean, what they're trying to do is prevent a hose from picking up a contaminated water source and then bringing that back into the city water system, right? That's what they're trying to prevent. So I think in most of these cases we're okay, but it's worth something checking. Gavin's always talking about moisture sensors, so he knows, like, hey, the ground moisture.
He is obsessed with soil moisture sensors.
I love it though. It's, for me, I love that idea of knowing, because like grass, if you can keep it at the optimum moisture, it grows really well. And you also spend a lot of water. If you're not doing it, you spend a lot of water on your grass, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I have the as recommended by Gavin, I have the EcoWit soil sensors, and they work great. He doesn't like them because they stick out of the ground, but I'm using them all in raised garden beds. I'm not using them for my lawn, and so they work fine. I think they're like $15 to $20 each, and so they work great. I have them tied in with Home Assistant and this Aquaflower. And so technically the garden shouldn't be watered as long as it's above 55% moisture or whatever it is.
I think that's a really good use of those, by the way, is not trying to measure your grass moisture level with that. Those raised beds work. I found out this year we put in hydrangeas, and they'll droop when they don't have enough water. And so they get droopy. Guess what? It's time to water.
Yep.
And so I go out and water them. I can see them from the window. And I check them, every day I come home from work and I look, I take a peek at them, and they're kind of my home automation. Like, oh, they're droopy. I need to get some. And I've hostas right next to them. The hostas do infinitely better than the hydrangeas. Those are a little more sensitive. So I kind of know, I kind of know when it's time to water. Again, I bought that big one, makes it kind of easier. And I enjoy a few minutes of watering. I probably won't automate that, but what are you showing here?
I can't blame you. So this is our raised garden beds that we've, this is the ones we automated watering. So we got some corn and tomatoes and some other stuff going on. We got a late start on it, but the watering has helped out a lot.
Next year you'll get it in early. Are those on the back of the property? Do you have to walk a ways to get to them, or
they're pretty close to the back door, so we can walk out towards them pretty quickly.
Yeah. That's one of the things I find people do. They install their raised bed gardens on the back of the property, and then you got to get a hose out there. I mean, if you don't have it plumbed, right? You kind of got to get a hose out there to them, and it just takes a little more. This year I moved some things from close to far that didn't require a lot of water. And then the stuff that's closer to the house is the more delicate stuff. And man, that's actually worked out really well for me. Like the hydrangeas, I put some hostas in with the hydrangeas to make sure they're shading they're kind of shading the soil, so it saves a little bit of moisture. Heavily mulched them just to kind of help with that. But listen, I'm honestly, I'm tempted. I want one of those. I want a home automation where it waters it for me, so I don't have to worry about it.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I would only use it for the plants we're going to eat. I think everything else for me is just, I don't know. Like my yard right now is a disaster because we've been through a drought recently.
Yeah.
And so my like half my grass is dead, and I just don't care about the grass. I want the edible stuff.
No, that's okay. Have you robot lawnmower? Have you thought
Yeah,
about
yeah.
doing that? Talk a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, so I did buy a robot lawnmower the year that we have a drought, so that was a good purchase at the wrong time. I bought the Segway Navimow. I think it's the I110N. So it's like their newest version. It's the upgraded model. I actually bought it with the full intent to return it. It's one of those things I've always wanted to try a
Really?
robot lawnmower.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna do the Amazon thing where I just take it back if I don't like it. And it got to the point where it's just nice not to have to worry about cutting my grass. And
Yeah.
so I think it was like $1,100 or $1,200. I made a promise to myself that I would offload some electronics in order to buy it. So
Okay.
I sold some old electronics and helped fund the purchase.
Yeah.
Used it for about a month, and then we've had pretty much a drought since then. So it's been great ever since then. But yeah.
Did you shut it off? I mean, is it not?
No, it only
fun?
goes like once every like 3 weeks right now, just because we don't really get that much growth. So
Really, it's been that dry there? in
yeah,
Ohio?
it's been very dry. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much the whole summer. I mean, it's not been that good. So it's a good year to do the irrigation system because we definitely would have needed it.
Have you been tempted in a drought to do the whole downspout water collection? It never works, by the way. But
Yeah, we thought about it. We
Yeah.
thought about it because we had our gutters replaced.
Yeah.
It'd be super easy to tap into it, and we actually have a rebate through the city. It's either the city of Columbus or Franklin County. That you get like a free rain barrel or rain garden or something like that. And so there was like a little quiz you had to do, and then I did the quiz and I got a voucher. But I ran out of time to buy my rain barrel. So
Yeah.
I thought about doing it. My biggest problem is I want to use it as with a part of the garden as well. And then I have to build some kind of lift or pump system to get it out into the irrigation. And I just haven't felt like tackling that yet.
Well, this is the problem with it. I thought all the way through this. You put 55 gallons. That's not actually very much water, to be honest with you, right? And so you're overflowing the thing when it is raining.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you really need it, you don't have enough. And you actually kind of need more, the old cisterns that in the old days, they'd put these cisterns in and they were 500 or 600 gallons. And yes, they used them for regular stuff. So they needed to be bigger. But the way we use water, you'd be surprised how fast those rainwater collection things empty. You really need some big ones to get it done. I started thinking about it and I'm like, yeah, no, I think I'm just going to eliminate grass. It's a lot easier.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah, we put a fire pit in that eliminated some grass. We've been bringing some things in that eliminated grass. And actually this year, and Gavin has said he's had way too much rain this year, not even to water.
Man.
He has the opposite problem. But we go on these cycles, right? We go dry and then we're too wet.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Nebraska, we've actually had kind of a perfect summer. We've had some hot days, but my grass needs mowed right now and it's green. We're in August. We're at the end of August. The fact that we're not dry like you are is pretty amazing. I mean, we live on the plains. It's always dry out here towards the end of summer. So for me, that's kind of been one of those things we just try to eliminate that way. So even though you're in a drought, you're not mowing your lawn. It'll come back. There's gonna be another time. Are you glad you made that decision to put a robot lawnmower in?
Yeah, I think it's a good decision. We have a relatively small yard, but honestly, for me, it's kind of like the robot vacuum. Do you have a robot vacuum?
I don't, but I do. I need one. Sure.
So it's kind of like the robot vacuum, right? It's not a perfect solution, and you still have to go around with a weed whacker and get the edges and all that good stuff. But it's one of those things that, like, for the backyard, I don't care about the backyard that much. Yeah. And so it's nice just to walk out and not have to worry about cutting the grass. And I've just started using it in the front yard. We don't live in like a bad area or anything, but we live off of a busy street. And so for me, I don't want to like just let the robot lawnmower go out and do its thing without me watching it.
Really?
So I'm like the ultimate level of lazy right now. Actually, yeah, I'm watching it. I just have a chair on the front. I'll do it in the morning and I'll just drink my coffee. But I just set that up this week, Jim. What's funny is I had the robot lawnmower for the backyard. and I had my neighbor cut in my front yard. So I wasn't doing any lawn mowing at all. So once a month, go around the backyard with the weed whacker, and that's it.
I tried to do the robot lawn or the robot vacuum cleaner. My daughter, Sammy, who's on the show from time to time, she said, "Dad, that's one of the few exercise things that you get. Are you sure that you want to, automate that thing?" And the same with the lawn mowing for me.
Yeah.
This year we've gotten an ample amount of rain. I probably should have mowed the lawn yesterday. I'm to the point where we need to. It's raining right now here. Kevin Schoonover was saying they're under thunderstorms and tornado warnings up there in Minnesota. I can see that on the radar right now. And we actually have some rain starting in the next 30 minutes here, but we've had that kind of summer that I need to mow not every weekend, but every in between. And I've been thinking God, it'd really be nice to have a robot lawnmower that was just doing this. As I do the same thing you do. I'd sit on the deck with a cup of coffee. I watch the thing do its job.
Nothing beats it, And it's just like I don't mind cutting the grass. This is the first house I've owned where I've had to cut the grass, but growing up we had to cut the grass and everything like that, and I've never minded it. But it's just one of those things that I just don't have to think about now.
Yeah. Kevin says looking at prairie restoration to eliminate some grass. I didn't do prairie restoration, but there was a section of grass that every summer it would grow more than I could cut it, and then with the summer conditions, it would all burn out as I would mow it, and it would just be dirt. This year, I just never cut it, and it actually did so much better. It's green right now. There's clover growing in it. The bees love it. I don't know, TJ, have you thought about just letting some of your grass grow to just letting it go for the summer? Have you ever thought about that?
I have, but in the front yard, we have to, because we live in a city, we have to be within a certain height and everything like that. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I think I'm just going to let it go. The previous homeowner had a tree at one point, but they got it chopped down. And now, unfortunately, the ground is starting to collapse in from the roots decaying. And so now we have to get the grass filled in and everything with some more dirt. And just I don't want to do any of that. We had a water main break actually in front of our yard, or in front of our house about a month ago. And the city fixed it and everything. They put down grass seed, but I haven't felt the need to water it either. I don't need the grass. I go back and forth. Weed control is the other thing. They have these, robots who will they'll go over your grass and look for weeds and spray little things. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It gets pretty obsessive. I mean, that's one of those kinds of things where you're how much do we really need? In the new house, oftentimes, new to you, but sometimes old houses have wiring problems. Did you have to rewire anything?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
This has been an awful wiring problem. Not as bad as knob and tube wiring. The house was built in 1959, and so it had relatively recent wiring. No ground wires though, so literally nothing had ground. But the biggest issue is that the previous homeowners love to rig things up. And so they would have one Romex going into the attic, into a junction box, and then from that junction box, it would feed 3 different rooms. And they had 3 or 4 of those junction boxes in the attic. And so I've been slowly rewiring the whole house. So we've redone the whole kitchen now. It's got 20 amp in the kitchen and the pantry. We've got new 15 amp in the living room, and now I'm working on the rest of it. So moving towards doing a full panel upgrade. So we have 200 amp service coming into the house already. Sorry, we have it at the pole coming to the house. Okay. But our meter is not 200 amp. Our panel is not 200 amp. And so I'm working on rewiring everything. And then hopefully in the next 2 years, we'll get the panel replaced and the service upgraded and everything. Haven't really had an electrical problem necessarily. I haven't really run out of power and nothing's really been tripping or anything like that. But I figured if we're going to upgrade, we might as well just go ahead and go with 200 amp service. And then if somebody wants to add an electric charger or something in the future, they can. Yeah. Well, if you're going to have an electrical vehicle, you're going to have to upgrade. Yeah, easily 60 amp, I think, for one of the fast chargers or something. I mean, that's already most of my current panel. Do you think you have 100 amp coming in now? Is that what you said? It's actually 200 amp coming in already.
Okay.
coming
Okay.
into the meter, but from the meter, it's still only 100 amp because that's all we
Okay.
have.
That's the
So
breaker is a 100 amp breaker,
yeah, so
right?
I had AEP, our electrical provider, out when we first moved into the house to see what it would take to upgrade to 200 amp. And they're
Yeah.
like, no, you already have it here and everything. You just have to upgrade your meter and your panel.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yep. I spent, oh, I don't know, this was maybe 10 years ago. I spent a couple $1,000 to have an
Mhm.
electrician come in, put a new panel. We didn't go full 200, it's 150 at the pole. And so it was for us, it was just fine to
Yeah.
run with the 150, put a new breaker box in. Man, that was great. That's maybe the best couple $1,000 I ever spent on the house. He also did some work, he'd seen some work that I'd done and he was like, not quite up to Bellevue code. We should probably replace that. And I was like, well, while you're at it. And then he was really quick to be like, well, I can't do everything, type deal. But like you, we upstairs, we lack ground.
Mhm.
And so there's some things you got to kind of do to get around that, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's one of those
And
things that, like, it's not that big of a deal, right? I mean, the ground wire basically just
sort
adds,
of.
like, a
Yeah.
redundant safety, and so
Yeah.
it's not the biggest deal, but it looks better when you go to resell the house, or makes
Yeah.
it easier to plug devices in and all that
Yeah.
good stuff, and it is
Yeah.
added safety as well, so it's definitely a
Yeah.
worthwhile upgrade, but it is a pain. I mean, luckily, our house is a ranch on a slab foundation, and so everything is accessible through the attic, and so adding new wires and changing them out really isn't that bad. But the
Yeah.
issue, Jim, is that when I got the roof replaced last year, we had
Oh,
18 inches of insulation blown in. And so all fresh insulation I have to crawl through, which
yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't think that one through. I should have did the electrical first, but it is
Yes.
what it is at this point.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I know some guys who run conduit. So before they do the blown in insulation, they're not ready to do the wiring. So they'll put conduit in and drop it down to each of the rooms. And then, so when you do go to do the wiring, at least there's some conduit there to kind of run some wires through. There's some ways around it, but I get you. Listen, there's no great ways to upgrade an old house, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and especially that. So I've been getting some quotes. Luckily, because of the work I'm in, I have some electrician friends, and they've decided to give me a good deal on upgrading the panel. A little more expensive than when you had it done. I
Mm.
think I'm at like $5,000 with a friend
Yeah.
upgrade. And
Yeah.
I had another party come in today, like one of the big national brand electricians, and they quoted like
Yeah.
9,500.
Whew.
So just
Yeah.
yeah,
No, you're right.
it's
Listen, I did it.
very expensive.
I did it for
Which
2 grand.
which is crazy though, because the parts really are
Yeah.
not that expensive. Like I was pricing out like a
Yeah.
200 amp panel, and I think maybe I had $1,000 in supplies.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's tough
Well,
work, and it's
and
you
it
know
is, but
licensing and all that stuff. So
it's that part of it, TJ, that when you think about the panel, it's not actually that complicated. You
mhm.
put the black wires here, you put the white wires there. In some cases, you have a red wire, so you've got two. That's 240 instead of 120. And at the end of the day, it's not as complicated, but it's like me working on my own brakes on my
Yeah,
car. Like I'm like, I don't do this every day. Do I really want to trust myself to do my own brakes?
yeah.
I'm going to get 1,000 emails from people who are like, "Oh, I do my brakes every day." I don't.
Oh,
I take
see,
them
see,
in.
I'll do a full house rewire, Jim, but I will not do my brakes or my own oil change.
Exactly.
It's just not my
Exactly.
thing. I used to work on cars a little bit and stuff, but it's one of those things
Yeah.
that I value my time more than I
Oh,
value
right on.
working on cars.
Right
So
on. Well, and when we had the panel rewired, the guy was done in a day. I mean, he
yeah,
came in, shut the power down at 8, 4 o'clock, things came back on, and he was done.
yeah.
And
It would
at
take me a
20,
couple days at least,
it always
several
does.
days.
It always does, right? It's
And
one of
then you
those
have to worry
kinds of
about the
things.
fridge being off for that long and the
Yeah,
generator and all that good stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Skip
What
all
do you
that.
do? What do you do about that? Have you in the stuff that you're doing in your automation stuff, have you thought about any of those wiring technologies where you monitor the power coming in, and like Sense, I think, is one of those,
Mhm.
the orange box that comes in. Have you done anything or thought anything along those lines of monitoring your power?
Oh yeah, so that's one of the reasons I want to upgrade as well. So we have something called Emporia Energy. And it's basically a retrofit solution for your electrical panel. You put it inside the electrical panel. One of the um, basically comes with like a clasp that wraps around the electrical wire on each breaker, and then it tells you the usage. And if I can share my screen here, this is my
throw it up there, and I'll put it on screen.
interface. But it's actually pretty cool. It's an easy retrofit solution. I think it was like $200 to monitor 16 breakers. It does use the cloud. There is a way to flash it to work only locally. I just use the cloud, and I haven't had any problems with it. If you use their cloud, it updates every second, and so you can get literal real-time usage out of it, and you can track individual devices. And what's nice about this is that you can actually use it to automate with like Home Assistant as well. And so I have an automation set up because we have the fridge on its own dedicated breaker now. I get notified if that breaker turns off for any reason. And I also use it to automate the dryer. So whenever the dryer is finished, the power drops below a certain level, and my phone will notify me that the dryer is done. So I use this I don't use it to its full advantage. I'm kind of just using it just to see what is using up my power, and maybe I can do something to kind of conserve energy, or maybe not run something at a certain time. But really, it's just I like stats and I like information, and that's why I have it.
Yeah. No, I hear, we in pre-show, you and I were talking about solar, we were talking about generators, and your power is even cheaper than mine, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's so cheap here.
Your price is ridiculous.
Yeah, 7 cents a kilowatt, I think I was looking at.
I would be shooting power out of the hose.
That's why I never worry about it here. Like, everybody's always worried about how high the power is, and it's just one of those things that, like, for me, it's really not that bad. But we also have a small house. I mean, we pay at most in the summertime, we pay like $170 with the AC blast, and we keep the house at like 74 degrees all summer. So
one of the things with I bought a Blue Eddy AC 180. It's got it will track for me the current draw that I'm pulling in, and so I've been kind of watching it. All the PCs are on it. It's kind of a backup for everything I have down here. And I was running 700-800 watts, and started shutting some things off, and I was like, oh, I can probably do this for 400. Do you find, like, all of a sudden you think, oh, maybe I don't need those things kind of turned on now? I leave all the monitors turned on because I love monitors. But as you're working through this, monitoring things, do you start feeling like maybe I could be shutting some things off from time to time, even though your power's so cheap? Or is it more just knowing?
Not for me. I mean, for me, it's just, it seems like we're really not using that much I have a lot of stuff going on, Jim. I mean, we have camera servers, and I have a full rack in my laundry room. And I mean, we have a ton of electronics going on. I just don't feel like we use that much. One thing though, I will say, and why I was kind of bummed to get the Aquaflower a little bit late, is I track all of our usage. So I track our electric usage, our gas usage, and our water usage. And my water usage is out of control at the moment with my irrigation system. So I use something called Flume. Flume is the easiest home automation device you'll ever use. It literally just wraps around your water meter, and then it detects how much water you're using. And so right now, my water usage is awful. I think we're at like 4,000 gallons for the month.
Because you're watering the lawn? Is that
we're watering the garden and everything?
Okay.
In the off seasons, it's not that bad. So let me see. Like, if we go back to December and January, I use 1,500 gallons less than I do in the summertime. So
do you get this kind of reporting on your water bill?
Yeah, but the problem is our water bill only comes like once every 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Is yours the same way? I think I heard monthly. You were saying yours is monthly. Somebody else was saying that theirs is like every 3 months. Yeah. And so what we do is I just I prepay. I just send like a bill every month, and I'm like, because they only update it every 3 months.
Maybe that was Jay who was saying that. I was trying to remember who was saying.
I felt like somebody was.
That was unusual to me. Like 3 months. We're a monthly. One of the things, I started looking at my water bill, and let's just say it's $85 a month. 65% of it is sewer costs.
Yeah.
That in like sewer upgrade and water infrastructure. And then I started actually looking at the water usage part. And I was like, actually, if I started using more water, it would not. Water's pretty cheap for us here in Nebraska. and my bill wouldn't go up that much the more water I use. Now I'm still trying to be conservative with it,
Right.
but my bill every month I come in and it has what you used in a year ago, what you used this year. And so I get kind of some of that sensing. I haven't feel like I've needed to get, to wrap it, like in your case, wrap it to get more specific usage.
Mm-hmm.
But you're finding that helpful. How much, like if I wanted to use that, how much is that tool?
I think that the Flume water meter, I think is only like $200. It's really not
Okay.
that much.
Okay.
So, and it's one of those things that like, it's not going to give you, it's obviously just measuring all the water usage. And so you're not going to know exactly what's using the water.
Right.
But it is one of those things that like, if it detects like an unusual amount of water,
Yeah.
it'll tell you, and maybe you have a leak then or something. And so that's really the reason we got it. We have water leak sensors everywhere. But if I have like a sink running for like a whole day or something, it'd be nice to know that.
Yeah. Can you measure it on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I think it comes down. I don't remember the exact time, but it comes down to like by the minute or something like that.
I was
I mean, it's very quick.
Last time we talked about water sensors, I had somebody contact me and say, they discovered a leak they couldn't see. And so they realized like we had water bleeding out somewhere outside.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't see it. We're being
and that's the thing that stinks about the 3-month water bill is that you don't know if something like that happens until then you get a bill for $2,000 and it's like, wait a minute. And then it's still going on because you haven't fixed it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, right on. It is one of those things. I think as we think about home automation too, our hot water heater, depending upon the region you're in, you might be electric, you might be gas powered, right? John Biggs the other day, he moved to that hybrid hot water heater. Was Paul
nice.
Byrne, was talking about it. I don't know if that would work best for me. I think that's one of those areas where I'd actually install it in my garage instead of inside the house, because the garage heats up in the summer and it would be able to grab that heat for me. I mean, that's one of those things where you're like, if I was going to move that direction, I might put that hot water heater in the garage. Now, if I did that, I'd have to have it
major rework,
replumbing, right, to get that all done. We're going to have to replace that here shortly, but certainly some of those, some of those modifications, or when we're thinking about water. Okay, well, the hot water heater is one area to think about. Moisture sensors. Have you put them under your sinks? Are you doing that kind of monitoring as well?
No, they're everywhere, Jim. So one of the couple of the things I was afraid of when we moved into the house, there was two things I was worried about. One was the roof and one was plumbing. And that's because I don't have any experience with either one of those. And I know, from my limited experience living in houses, that you need a roof, and having running water is nice. And so unfortunately we had to have the roof replaced shortly after we moved in. And so that's luckily no longer a problem.
Insurance cover that, or did you?
Yeah, most of it.
Okay.
Insurance covered most of it. The issue is that we have such an old house. We had a couple of spots where the decking was bad. Yeah. And when they were going to redo the roof, I wanted them just to replace all the decking at the same time. I was like, the house is old. Who knows when it was replaced and everything. Let's replace the decking. But we also needed to add proper ventilation to the attic. And so I was like, let's just do it all. And insurance obviously wasn't going to cover that. Right. And so we had to pay, I think, like $5,000 out of pocket by the time we did gutters and everything like that.
Smart.
Wasn't bad, but I was like, I just don't want to worry about it ever again.
It's money well spent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peace of mind.
Those kinds of infrastructure things, especially your roof, that is those areas I'm like, do it right.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to cheap out. I went through contractors and I was like, this is what I want. And I had contractors that like, they would tell me, they're like, oh, you don't need to replace all the decking. We can just, and I'm like, just do it. I don't want to ever think about it again for 20 or 30 years.
We're in that situation. We had roof damage and that's getting replaced in the next couple weeks. I think I just finally got the check. So I had to send it off to my mortgage company so they could sign it and send it back, right? All those things. And then, so that'll be replaced in the next couple of weeks, but we had siding damage. Now my siding is 35 years old and they're like, sometimes we can't replace that. And so what do? Well, then they need to reside. And I'm in that I'm in that place right now. I'm like, you know what? I'd pay a little extra to have it done really well. And then it's like, if you take off the siding and there's no house wrap, I think I want you to put house wrap on
Yeah.
there, right? Those
Yeah.
kinds of things. And I'm like,
And
I'm willing to pay for it. Like I don't want you to do it for free, but I'm willing to pay for it. Those would be smart upgrades, right? At this point in time.
Yeah, just like when we did the roof, we did the insulation. We had some
Right.
water dripping on the insulation for who knows how long, and I don't think it
Right.
was that bad in the grand scheme. But it's just
Yeah.
like, let's just
No.
do it. We don't have to worry about it.
Good time to get it done. Kevin Schoonover says in the chat, he says the smart water softeners I've been looking at have usage data. This may be another area rather than going with a sensor or with a flow meter. If you're replacing your smart water, or if you're going to do a water softener, you could get one that's, data aware,
Mm-hmm.
right. And cut it off for leaks and overuse. That might be another good way to. Do you have to do water softening or anything in your?
No, we don't have a water softener. We couldn't even add one, honestly. We have such a small utility space. We have a 30-gallon water heater right now, and like it's going to be challenging to even upgrade to a 40-gallon water heater. So it's just a very small space. And honestly, when we moved in, I really wanted to get one of the automatic water shutoff valves installed. But they would have had to redo our plumbing a lot. And I think it was like $1,500 just to redo some piping. And I was like, nope, not worth it. We'll just throw water leak sensors everywhere.
Yeah, I did. When we moved in here, we had some water problems, and I had him just put a whole new cutoff. He's like, it was the old,
Yeah, that's what we have right now.
Yeah.
And it's at like a 90-degree angle. So like you can't even, they don't even make like automatic water shut off for those.
Right.
But like, even if I could, there's nothing to strap it onto.
Yeah.
So it just,
we had him replace it with the handle one.
Yeah,
that you could easily get down and get that done. And that has been a good, and you know what? One of the things I've liked to do, and even in the bathrooms, this is a smart thing to do. From time to time, go in and turn your water shutoffs on and off.
Yeah.
Like maybe once a quarter.
Make sure they're still working and everything.
Yeah, in an emergency, those things freeze up from time to time.
Yep. And
it's just a good idea, if you especially have a harder water, it's a good idea. Just turn those things once or twice. Just get them broken free, and kind of get that done. TJ, anything else when you think about what you've done? Anything else that you'd want to talk about, or that's been helpful to you in your home upgrade there?
Honestly, I think one of the things I'm most proud of, I'll show you an image here again. So we had a privacy fence installed. When we moved in, we had a chain link fence. And we wanted a privacy fence installed.
Yeah.
And so they came and installed that. It was great. I think it was like $6,000 or $7,000. So it wasn't, I don't think it was that bad. It was way more work than I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not that skilled. And so they came in and installed that. We got it stained and everything. But one of the things I really wanted was lighting on the fence. And I wasn't sure, we don't really have any landscaping yet, minus the raised garden beds. But I had this idea. They make what's called deck lights. And the deck lights basically go on like the face of the stairs, and that's what lights up the stairs. And so that's what I put on my post on my fence. And so you got a picture here, and it just illuminates the whole line of the fence. And so when you go outside, you can kind of see everything. Yeah. And it's just one of those things. They're all hardwired lights. I ran conduit on the backside of the fence, and then drilled the holes in for the lights and everything like that. They're all controlled with the automation system as well. So they all turn on and everything automatically. But it's just one of those things that like, it's such it took a while to do it, but it's one of those upgrades that like, it just works every time. Yeah. And you get the benefits of it, because then you can use your yard. You can see everything.
Yeah. Those are beautiful. This may be one of those times you want to come over to the video and check it out. TheAverageGuy.tv. This will be /HGG620 if you want to watch the video on this one. You said you put conduit. A lot of the lighting you can buy now is wireless or solar. Any thoughts to just putting solar lights on each one of these panels and letting them do their job?
Yeah, I think solar is a good application for it, especially if you don't have the tools and knowledge to do the hardwire. For me, being in Ohio, solar wasn't always perfect. It's one of those things that like through the winter time, I would have to charge the batteries 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And it's not that big a deal, but I have 20 lights on my fence. And so if I had to recharge 20 lights throughout the wintertime, that part would not be good. But they worked good. I still use them for like the driveway and other parts of the house. And I have no problems with them. So I think there's a use case for them, and I think a lot of people are happy with them. So
I also find them not to be very bright.
Well, that's the other issue too, right? Is that they always are much dimmer than hardwired lights. And my problem too with solar lights is that typically they're on the lower end in quality. And so whenever you have one that eventually goes bad in a year or two, you typically can't find a replacement that's the exact same. And so the light goes out, the electronics go out, the battery goes out, whatever it is, you have to buy a new one, but it's not going to match all the other ones. These ones, they're all hardwired. You easily can change the light bulb because we all know the light bulbs go bad at some point. So it's the same fixture, and I can change the brightness and all that good stuff. So I think hardwired is worth it if you want that longevity. But if you just don't care that much, or maybe you don't have the money or the power to do it, then I think solar is a good option.
Yeah. I don't think it's always, you get what you pay for with lighting, for sure. And so this is one of the things I learned. I bought some fairly cheap, like at the end of Christmas, I bought some, it was outdoor rated, but so I bought some of those drop lights, the white ones, and I put them around the deck and I stapled them in, and I literally got a year. They were done, right? They're breaking, the plastic's snapping off, it's literally a single wire in there. I mean, a single copper wire. If you sneeze on it or breathe on it, it breaks, kind of deal. And so I bought a little more expensive tube lighting for the deck. And for me, I don't like I've got the chain link fences around the side of the yard, but we wanted to do under deck lighting, and I bought those tube lights that got some smart to them. They're not multicolored,
like the rope lights.
Yeah, rope lights.
Yeah.
And man, those look good. We'll see how I installed them. I don't know, 2 months ago. So let's see how they do over winter. They were maybe twice the price as the cheap, maybe 3 times the price as the cheap Christmas lights. They got a little smart to them. They have a remote control. They don't have any Wi-Fi or any of those kinds of connectivity. I got them a switch on the deck. You just switch them on, they come on, type deal. One of the things I've been trying to do is protect the plugins. And so I bought some of those $18.
Oh yeah, like wrap around it and everything.
Yeah, outdoor. It's got
it's what I'm using for my robot lawnmower right now because I don't have an outlet near it, so I have to drape it across the yard.
Yeah, no, right on. But it at least protects that outlet from rain and snow and some of those kinds of things. I've really liked it. I've really liked those rope lights, and that's been a nice upgrade. We'll try it. We'll get them through the winter. This is the key for both you and me. Can you survive a winter? Right? Do you make it past -20? So
I think it's one of those things. If I wasn't in the space, and for example, the landscape lights I installed on the fence, I'm a dealer for the company, and so I can get them for whatever my cost is. And
what's
everything
a setup like that
helps
cost?
I think like MSRP on the lights, I think are only like $75 each. So the lights really aren't that bad. It's typically the labor to install them, but usually when you do the hardwire landscape lights, they're pretty maintenance free, unless you get like an irrigation company or something that chops through your line.
Yeah. Brian says he loves those lights. I love that look.
Yeah.
Like, this is a great, as we're looking at the video, this is a great backyard look. This is one of those kinds of things when in an evening it's quiet, maybe it's late fall, you got the lights on, you can kind of just be out there. What's out in the corner there? I see a bump out there.
So that's our upside down pond liner right now. So unfortunately, our yard is nice because it's a decent size. But the problem is we have no shade back there. Like there's no trees or anything. And so we don't use the space right now because during the day, in the summertime, it's miserable. I mean, there's no shade at all. So it's just hot all the time. And so we have plans maybe next year or the year after to build like a small raised deck out there and do some kind of sunshade sail or pergola or something like that. So that way we can actually use the space. Because right now it's like I just go out to check the garden and I go back inside because it's just so dang hot.
Yeah. That'd be a perfect spot. You think about this kind of situation for a pergola.
Yeah.
Right. And throw that out there. Maybe you throw a concrete pad down and put the pergola on the pad. And then you could light the pad then you kind of start thinking about, do we run power out to the pad?
Yep.
Kind of thing, right? Type deal. You start thinking about these projects. And I mean, I was real fortunate when we did our deck here, they had run power out to the deck. There was a pool, our original deck had a pool in the center of it. We swam in it for 10 years and then the kids stopped swimming. So we were like, we're spending $1,000
so
a
expensive.
summer.
Yeah.
I could have bought 1,000,000 pool passes for that price, right? So, but they had run power out to it, and it was just really nice to have it out there and waterproof and all those kinds of things. I've tapped into that power a couple times out there, which makes it kind of nice, right, to be able to do it. But you think about that back corner. I see a lot of DIYers putting a floating deck on the grass, so they'll go out and put a deck, put a shade over.
That's what our plan is right now.
We bought an 11 by 13 sunshade that we actually put on the deck so that we can roll that out during hot days. And you think like, oh, I mean, that's $500 for that shade. But man, there are some afternoons you roll that thing out. It is nice.
Yeah.
Right. It just kind of changes the
whole. Especially if you don't have anything. I mean, we have plans to plant a couple trees, but I mean, trees take a while to grow.
No, they do take a while.
We're probably not going to reap the benefits of a tree, but
well, you might. I don't know. Do you plan to stay there for a while, or do you think?
I think like 5 years or so. I don't think it's going to be that long. It's one of those things that it was better than renting at the time. So
5 years.
Renting just got ridiculous.
I don't think I'd plant trees for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's some quick growing trees, but you're kind of like, well, maybe I'll let the next guy kind of do that thing.
Somebody else's problem.
Yeah. So it's a good. Do you think if you did an outdoor pergola, would you do light sensing stuff out there so that when you walk out there, the lights just come on for you? Or is outside a different space?
Yeah, I always treat outside as just schedule based. I can do motion based stuff, and if you can get really fancy with like your camera system and person detection and all that stuff. But for me, like outside stuff, I just want it on at a certain time and turn off at a certain time. So that's the simpler one. That's all just schedule for me. And that's how my fence lights are automatic. They just turn on with sunset. And I don't remember what time they turn off, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So
we got some outdoor fans 3 box fans that we actually put together in a unit, and then I drilled them into the fence or into the deck siding. That's not the railing. There we go.
Yeah.
And those all come on with a switch, and then they can be 1, 2, or 3, right? So you can kind of set them different ones. The lights are on that same circuit, so they come on. The lights automatically come on. And we found that to work really well for us. One of the things we did find is the sun's going down, we get this pretty wicked, and we just lost a bunch of trees in this windstorm from a couple weeks ago when the power went out. So now it's even worse, right? Type deal. But I put up another railing, and now we can install kind of a low sunshade for that area. And it just marries really nicely with the sun sail that we put on top. So you kind of get this enclosed area.
Yeah.
And it's kind of surprisingly nice to have that kind of shaded an area. You can kind of control those things, enjoy a cocktail out there while you're doing it. Do you, in your yard, you worry about Wi-Fi out there at all? Have you thought about if you're out there getting Wi-Fi in some of those spaces or no?
Oh man, the whole yard is covered in Wi-Fi, Jim. So we have a front yard access point, a backyard access point, and then we have one inside the house. So the problem is, so it's kind of funny. We have AT&T for cell phone and for home internet, and our cell service at the house is god awful. Okay. And so as soon as I get near my house, I need to basically have Wi-Fi in order to do anything. And so I have one on the front of the house, one on the back of the house, and pretty much wherever I go, I have good Wi-Fi. So. Yeah. And I have a couple small Wi-Fi stuff outside that needed good Wi-Fi as well. So like the Aquaflower, for example, needs Wi-Fi. I do have some outdoor lights up front that do require Wi-Fi. So just various things like that.
Yeah.
And it's all like secondhand equipment. I don't think I've paid for any of the outdoor Wi-Fi equipment. It's always been, I've got it from clients or something after we've upgraded their equipment. So perks of the job sometimes.
No, for sure. One of the things I learned is I was trying to push Wi-Fi out to the shed. Shed is on the outside corner. Like in the picture that we saw right here, my shed would be where that bump is out there, right? Right out there in the picture. And so I was struggling to get Wi-Fi to my laptop. I use it kind of as a smoke shed, and we go out there for cigars and stuff. And it wasn't working very well. And so I was trying all these gyrations to get this thing working well. What I realized after I got a new laptop that I was using out there, it was my Wi-Fi receiver in my old laptop that wasn't very good. And as soon as I took a new laptop out there, what I was using was just fine.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to think about the age of the equipment that you're using. Not all equipment. This laptop was probably, it's sitting right here, but it's probably 10 years old. And you're like, not all Wi-Fi receivers are created equally. If you're buying a new piece of equipment, you probably have a pretty good Wi-Fi receiver in there, or a Bluetooth receiver. Same deal, right? This from the home automation space. The newer Bluetooth stuff, I'll say this, correct me if I'm wrong, the newer Bluetooth stuff definitely better than the older Bluetooth stuff, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's one of those things that like typically it is better, but Wi-Fi specifically, you can get faster speeds, but typically the range doesn't go as far. It's kind of like cell service, right? When 5G was first coming out, it was great. It was super fast, but you couldn't go that far away from it. Right. And it's the same concept for Wi-Fi. So, we do run into that problem a lot with people's Wi-Fi devices. They're using old laptops or tablets or whatever. And that's like, well, my tablet doesn't work as good with my new Wi-Fi as it does with my old Wi-Fi. Yeah. And it's like, well, unfortunately, that's just the design of newer stuff. And you can't always control that.
Yeah, in fact, I've got a couple Wi-Fi 6 devices sitting in my Amazon cart. I do I put it in the cart and then I move it into pay or buy it later kind of area in Amazon, so that I kind of watch the price on it. I'm cheap, so I always watch the price.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, it works, but gives me the opportunity to think, okay, is it time? Is it the equipment at the end point that I need to replace, or is it the equipment at the broadcast spot I need to replace? Right now, the laptop I'm taking out there and the extender that I have sitting right on the last power plug on the kitchen where it's the closest to it, it's working, right? Yeah. And it bathes the deck, so I don't have when I'm on the deck, I don't have any problems with it. But it is those kind of multiple, you got to kind of think, hey, how's the equipment receiving and how's it sending? Could it be either one of those? Did you, on those lights, one last question on those lights on your fence, RGB, did you think about, do they have the ability to change colors at all? Did you think about that?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't we have some RGB lights in the house that I almost never use. Yeah. So for me, it's not one of those things that I really care about. I did look at it. So these landscape lights they use, I think it's called the G4 bipin bulb, and it's a very common bulb for landscape lights, or I think it even some use in automotive and other things. And they do one company makes an RGB bulb for it, but it's like $16 each. And so when you add up 20 of them, it's like, do I really need it? And then they're not as bright. Most of the time we're going to use it with just white, and the white isn't that bright anyway. And so I bought one to test it with, but it's one of those things that I don't value it enough.
Do I hear you saying then that RGB bulbs that are designed for color and bulbs that are just white, is the white brighter on just the white bulbs? Is that what I heard you say?
So I'm not going to say always, but typically yes. Okay. And the reason for that is a lot of LEDs don't have a dedicated white LED chip. Okay. And so a lot of LEDs, and I think there was who is it? Govee this week. Govee's a smart home lighting company. Yeah. They released some new outdoor lights, an updated version, and their newer version has a dedicated white LED chip on them. And so that's typically the difference. And also just RGB, when you do that, it's typically not as bright. And there's probably gonna be somebody listening that's gonna say I'm wrong. And that can be true. There's a lot of times where that is wrong, but in general, that is what you can expect.
Well, when I was looking at replacing, so the lights were bad. I had a whole section go out on the deck. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to replace these. The colored rope lights were twice as much as just the white.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they were any brighter, but man, those white lights, the ones I bought that are just white. Now, they're not just white, right? They're I can do 4 different colors from bright white to, I don't know what that color is, tan. What's,
Yeah, 2700 to 3000 K is the temperature.
Right. It looks tan or orange. I don't know. Kind of deal. But it would have cost me twice as much to, get the RGB. I don't know about you, but this is kind of why I asked you the question about, your fence lighting. Do you want color on a fence? Like, would you use it that often? On the deck, we're just looking for white ambiance, right?
Yeah, I just want to see, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm walking around.
Although, since I put them in, I'm surprised. The kids are like, oh, these are really nice. Like, this is a nice feeling. So it can make a difference, right? Even we took them off the bright white and I put them on the one step down, so they're a little dimmer or a little browner or whatever that tone is. Maybe 4,000 to 3,500.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think typically the brightest is like 5 to 6,000.
Yeah.
We did so my front yard, we have going up to the house, we have a sidewalk, and I did choose RGB lights for those. I actually went with the LifeX path lights. Okay. And the only reason I did that is we don't really have people over that often, but I figured for the holidays or if we're going to have people over, I could change the lights to a different color. Yeah. And that could be more obvious, where the house with the red lights or something like that. I haven't really done that. But that was the thought process behind that.
Yeah, that's a good TJ, that's a really good idea. We had a house party, I don't know, a couple months ago, and somebody was like, you should put a balloon out front so we know. And you could kind of use the lighting as a look for the blue lights that are on. Right.
Yeah, and honestly, you could even tie it into the automation system too. Yeah. So if smoke was detected or something, maybe you could light up the lights red and help indicate to the fire department where you are or something like that. So yeah, I think you can get really tweaky with it depending on what you wanted.
Yeah, I was thinking
how much time you want to waste,
When you were saying smoke, I was thinking of a smoke machine that
well, that'd be cool too.
Lights coming on with the
a little strobe light and everything.
Get the thriller kind of thing going on. Justin out in chat says he uses RGB to sync to music. It's good when you try it. Not always, but finds that it gives a good ambiance, but only when you use RGB if we have guests, just ourselves. White is the normal. Yeah.
That would be my thought process too. If you're entertaining, RGB makes sense, but normal everyday use, I don't know.
Even I had the white lights even pulsating for a second where they'd go off and on and off and on. And my kids were like, can you turn that off?
Stop that now.
Can you stop that? That's really bothering me.
Yeah.
And
some of my when we were talking about smart lighting, all my bulbs in the house now are smart LED bulbs. And some of them are RGB, some of them are RGB bulbs, some of them are just white. And I just bought them based off what the price they were at the time, even though we don't really use the color. Yeah. And one of the integrations I use is called adaptive lighting. And that's what changes the color, brightness, and temperature throughout the day. But it's also got a setting on there to use the RGB values. And so it'll actually use the color throughout the day. And I tried that for an hour. And it was awful because it would make the light purple and orange and stuff like that. And I'm like, I cannot deal with this. Please stop.
That's hilarious. Yeah, we have one bulb that for whatever reason keeps resetting itself to some color that's I don't know, apricot. I mean, it's that kind of color. It's orangey red kind of thing. And I've gone into the app and reset the color and say, no, save it as this. It will not stay that. And so I'll walk by the light. It's actually now Sarah has it right as we're walking upstairs. And I'm like, oh, I got to go in and reset that light. That's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
That is not going to work for me.
They always have the worst reset instructions too. It's turn the light switch on 20 times and turn it off for 5 minutes. who has time for this?
I can't. Well, and I've got a couple of those outdoor plugs that you plug them in, and then they're outdoor rated, and you can plug whatever into it, and it, from a timing perspective, it'll come on and off kind of based on what you want. And God, for the longest time, TGA, I'll be honest with you, I use it. I have a square set of lights that, they're basically Christmas lights that came in a carpet pattern. They're kind of designed to be on a bush or something along those lines.
Yeah.
They have, I think LG makes them. No, Philips makes them. So I think they have, I don't know, 17 different color things you can do with them, right? Those kind of things. But for the life of me, after I programmed it for Christmas, about, I don't know, March, I couldn't figure out how to shut those things off. Like, which app is this? Like, and I tried for several nights to figure out how to turn those things off. I'm like, okay, certainly my neighbors don't want to see Christmas lights in March, right? And it took me literally a week to figure out where I had programmed those things between the Amazon and the plug itself and the app and all these other things. I'm like, where is that? And I finally found it. But if you asked me today, I found that like, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, turned them off right after, I put red, white, and blue on for the 4th of July. And then I finally got them turned off, I don't know, 1st of August. And I was like, if you asked me today, I wouldn't know how to turn them back on. Right. We have so many places to go for home on. And listen, you and Gavin talk about Home Assistant all the time. I'm sure Seth maybe does too.
A little bit. We're breaking them down very slowly.
Yeah. Even when I've got it consolidated in a Home Assistant, sometimes I can't figure out where to turn, right? I mean, it's just home automation.
I think that's just where we are with the home automation, unfortunately. I think it's one of those things that professionally it's been around for several decades now, but in the DIY space, it really hasn't been around that long. Yeah. And so I think right now we're at that very early point where it's going to be painful for a while.
Yeah. Well, and during the power outage, for whatever reason, I lost a drive on my Unraid server, and Unraid is hosting home automation. And for whatever reason, it lost its settings. And I wasn't going to troubleshoot it. I was just like, well, I'll set up my home automation dashboards again. I still haven't. There's still the default ones. And I'm like, it's on my list of.
Well, they don't make that easy either. Their dashboards are not good.
No, they're not hard.
It's not. It's just very tedious, though. It's very there's nothing out of the box to make it easy.
True. Yeah, true. I have a list of things to do. It's on the list, and I just haven't got to it yet. Yeah. I need to jump into Home Assistant and get it.
Well, that's why the physical controls are always important, Jim. Because even if the automation system is down, all my lights still work. It stinks when they don't turn on. They don't turn on and off automatically, but that's not the end of the world.
Are you okay? What's the other? Okay, Home Assistant, but what's the other? What's the hardware one? That home
Habitat.
Are you a Habitat guy? I know Gavin.
I've used Habitat in the past. For me, the pain point was the mobile experience. I'm a very heavy app usage person, and at the time, Habitat did not have a native app. And it's just one of those things for a home automation system. I needed an app. So I think they released one shortly after that, but at that point I had already gone into Home Assistant. So
yeah.
And Home Assistant is by no means perfect. It's honestly a really big pain in the butt. It takes a lot of time to mess with and everything, but it's one of those things that it's the best at what it does. And there's not a lot of good options.
It's a sketchy space. I mean, you think about all these different companies doing all these different things and all these different automations. When I lost my current dashboard, the Bluetooth stuff that I'd set up, it doesn't recognize it now. And now I'm going to have to call Gavin and say,
set up that Gavin as a service.
Gavin, how do I
call it?
This thing?
We call it GAS, Gavin as a service.
That's hilarious. That is, I'm going to have to call Gavin and be like, okay, walk me through this again. How did I
have to do it all the time. So
how did I get this Bluetooth set up? On our way out, Brian says one more thing. He says he likes having RGB colors to various sporting events I'm watching, i.e. green and gold for the Packers game, or fill in some of those kinds of things in. I go back and forth. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I'm not a huge RGB user. I kind of like lights for utility purposes. In other words, I want to see where I'm walking or I want to see where I'm going. And I don't, although my neighbor bought some Christmas lights that he put up in his tree that have the I don't know, pressure sensing. And so like when fireworks were going off, they were designed to mimic the music.
Oh yeah.
Right. But what you don't realize is those fireworks do this. They will make those things go bright. And so he put those up in his tree. Pretty cool, to have during the 4th of July to see his tree,
That sounds pretty
pulsing
cool.
with the
Yeah.
fireworks. Yeah. So those kinds of things. So Gavin said, I heard my name. He was invoked. No. TJ, nice job. Hey, anything coming up on Home Tech that you want to pimp before we get out of here?
Well, I'll tease a couple interviews. I haven't told anybody else these are going on yet, though. So don't tell anybody. It's between us.
Secret between us.
That's right. Next week, we have an interview with Owen. Owen owns a home theater company in not next week, but the week after. He owns a home theater company in the UK, and he is very, very nerdy about home theaters. That guy knows his home theaters, and if you want to do a proper home theater, he's definitely the person to talk to. Probably in October, we have Maxwell from Aquaflower coming on.
Oh, nice.
So he's in brand new company, going to launch next year. So I'm excited to talk about this product. It's one of those in between products that I'm super pumped for. It's worked great since I've gotten everything. So I'm excited to have him. And then I'm working on Paulus from Home Assistant, the founder of Home Assistant.
Oh, wow.
And so he was on the show before with Seth and Jason, the previous co-host. And so it'd be nice to get him back on the show and get an update. Sweet. So pretty busy update schedule or interview schedule going on here.
Yeah, if you haven't subscribed, head over to hometech.fm, figure it out how to get that on whatever podcast.
We're on everything, so you can find us anywhere.
Yeah, find us there.
Like any other podcast, I think, at this point, right?
Super, unlike this podcast, super helpful in what you're trying to do.
Nice. A lot of talking the same way. So, it's always funny. Gavin, Seth, and I will talk for like 2 hours before we even record a podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's just we record the podcast. So there's a lot of stuff to go over, and every week is a little different. So.
No, it's a great companion podcast to Home Gadget Geeks. And if you haven't subscribed to it, get subscribed to it today. TJ, thanks for coming on again. Maybe we won't wait 8 months. Maybe we'll do 6 months. You let me know when you're ready to come back on. Say I got more things to talk about, and we'll get you on there. Thanks for coming on tonight. So it's good to have you on here.
Absolutely, it's been fun and always good to come in after Gavin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to clean up his mess.
That's right.
He's kind of a little messy.
Yeah. Well, try hosting a show with him.
Oh, I'll have to have Gavin on soon. Hey, hang tight for me 1 second. We'll remind everybody, if you want to join us in the Discord. Do you guys have a Discord group?
We do not. We have a Slack group. I want to move us to Discord because I don't really like Slack. But they've just been on there since they founded. So we use Slack. If you donate $1, you automatically get invited to the Slack channel.
Boom.
And it's pretty helpful. People post like tech help and support and stuff all the time. So
yeah, our Discord group is just a kind of a place. I wouldn't say. I mean, it's helpful, and you can post questions there. Probably a little slower than your group, but you can join that, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. If you've got a comment for the show, you can leave us a message, homegadgetgeeks.com. And there's a little blue microphone button. Just click on that and leave me a 30-second message immediately. As soon as you're done, send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. For whatever reason, I don't get those notifications. So just let me know you've sent a voicemail and we'll play it on the show. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both media and web hosting powered by Maple Grove Partners. That's Christian. He's going to be on in a couple weeks here. I think I got him scheduled for 2 weeks from now. He'll be on September 12th, so you can come out, get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting for people that you know and trust. And, of course, Christian. Visit maplegrovepartners.com and check out his plans. Hosting starts as little as $10 a month. And so that's inflation fighting.
So crazy
plans. Yeah.
Crazy cheap
out there. So check it out today. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern out there at theaverageguy.tv/live. Kevin Schoonover says, thanks, guys. Tim says, great show. Brian says, great show. So appreciate you guys being out there live. You can join us every Thursday. We're doing this, well, not every week, but most every week. You could join us live, and we'd love it if you do that. And so come out and join us and get it done. We'll do a little bit of a post show with TJ, but after that, with that, I guess we'll say thanks. And with that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. DJ, thanks. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Appreciate you coming on. No, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad you find it. Gavin says thanks, and of course he would, but it's always good.
Yeah, he better.
Good to have you. You're great for the show, so thanks for.
Yeah, I can always talk about technology. So
yeah, no, it's fun.
Hard not to, right?
It is fun. I'll get. We'll get Gavin back on, and then maybe we can find another time to get all three of you back on the get the home tech guys together again and get everybody back on. That'd be fun indeed.
Yeah.
You got any future home tech stuff coming on the house? Any big projects that you're looking forward to?
I don't think home tech. I mean, we got some stuff going on. We're gonna redo the bathroom and keep redoing the kitchen here. So
plumbing sucks, dude.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, for me, the thing I'm not looking forward to is the tiling, because we want to redo the tiling, the shower and stuff like that. So
that's the worst. That is the worst.
Yeah.
I know how to do electrical, plumbing, and I can do basic plumbing. I can get okay. Excuse my language. I can get the shit out of the house, right? That part I can do it all, as long as it's downhill and you get it there, right? But it is the you like our house was built at the same time period. I don't know about you, but I have this weird combination of copper and galvanized steel.
Oh yeah.
I got this weird, and
I'm afraid to even look at mine, to be honest.
I want to put PEX in. Yeah. I like, it just is frustrating. And I have a leak that we've had for like 5 years. I've been maybe 10. I've been putting it off forever. And Sarah's like, we got to get that leak fixed. And I'm like, I know. Can you just hire a plumber? I don't want to. I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't have as a plumber. So
I know, and they're hard to find. And right now, for whatever reason, they're $1 million.
Yeah, I got a quote for a water heater, a 40-gallon water heater, and it was $6,000 to replace and everything. God. And I was like, come on, it's not that bad.
That's ridiculous.
Like, I know you have to reduce some of the water, but geez.
Yeah, no, that's
the water heater alone is only like $700.
Can you go to? Was that from like Menards?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, no. So the $700 was, but like getting like an actual licensed plumber, and with a water heater, you have to get a permit from the city, and I mean, you can skip that, I guess. But
yeah, we had a new furnace put in, and we took the bids, and we said, "Would you put a new hot water heater in while you're putting in?" And we took the bid where the guy threw in the hot water heater for free.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. I'm gonna have to replace it again here pretty quick. By the way, Gavin said it. He only came because TJ said he's going to talk about cats. Is that?
I was going to talk about the litter box, but I think I talked about it the last show.
Yeah, the automatic one.
Yeah, there's not much else going on with it. I don't have to scoop poop. It's great.
Is it still working?
Yeah, it's one of those things that like I touch it maybe once a week. I empty out the litter box or add litter. I don't touch it. I like having cats, but I don't like cleaning up after them.
At some point you have to subtract, right?
Yeah, so once in a while. Well, so the waste automatically subtracts it, obviously, to some degree.
Right.
But then there's a button on top that will empty it, and so it just dumps all the litter out, and then you just fill it with new litter. So
how much was that?
It's like $1,000. Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things that like you really have to hate scooping litter, and for us, we were scooping litter, 2 litter boxes. We were scooping every like 2 or 3 days.
How many cats do you have?
Just 2.
Okay. Well,
so, I mean, not that much, but it's just one of those things that like I was doing all the time.
That's hilarious. Well, you pick your battles, right?
It was our new house gift. Last year I was like, we should just buy a house, a gift for the house, and that's what we bought.
How much was the mower?
About the same price, yeah,
Okay,
like $1,100 or so.
Hey, but those used to
all
be
the robots are like $1,000 for like the good mid range ones.
When Husqvarna first came out, they were like $3,000.
Yeah.
Right. So they've kind of come down in price, right?
Yeah, and you can buy them cheaper. I think you can buy like the Husqvarna ones. You can buy like one of the very basic ones for like $600 or $700.
Yeah.
So I mean, not bad.
No, they've gotten pretty reasonable.
My next purchase is a robot mop, and that's like $1,000 as well. So
I don't know if I trust those yet.
Yeah, I had one, but it had like a built-in camera that you could use the app to watch, and I was not a fan of that. I was like, I don't want my robot mop to have a camera.
I would watch, we have Aaron Lawrence on from time to time, and Aaron is testing all these things. When Aaron approves it, then you kind of go like, okay, it's the real deal.
Yeah, I've been watching her recommendations. Yeah. I'm waiting for the right time to buy one. I've never, like, all my life I've always had carpeted floors.
Yeah.
And so this house, it's all LVP. Yeah. And for me, like, I understand that carpet's gross because all the stuff is falling into the carpet. Right. But with the hardwood floors, you just feel everything.
Yeah, you do.
And so like it's just like for me, the robot vacuum was important because it's just like I don't want to feel stuff underneath my toes all the time.
Yes.
And now the robot mop is becoming a thing where it's like that would be nice.
Yeah. I don't see, our house is situated in a way that I'd have to do a whole bunch of work to just get it ready. It's like, when you have a cleaning person come over and then you clean up the house before they get there because you want them to do the hard stuff. I feel like that would be the same thing with a robot mop for me.
Yeah.
Like we'd have to move we have a bunch of throw rugs in the kitchen. Those would all have to come up.
Well, that's my problem with the robot vacuum is that we have rugs and stuff everywhere. And so I pick up the rugs to the robot vacuum and then I don't put the rugs back down. And so like we have rugs just like in piles everywhere because I'm like, well, the robot needs to clean.
Right.
And I don't put anything back. So
yeah.
It'd be the same thing for
me.
Right
on. I'm with you. Justin says needs to have Dave McCabe come back on. Yeah, we'll get Dave back on.
He's in Indy too, right?
Yeah, he's in Indianapolis. Yeah, he is good. He is a good fan of the show, and it's good to have him back on as well. Yeah, we just got, it's like some people have clearer floors, and we just got crap everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I even think down
here
we
are, so
is I'm looking in the basement. I'm just like, man, we got a lot of shit on our floors.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know. I don't know how the explicit rating just kicked in. But it's one of those kinds of things. You're just like, yeah, I don't know. So I go back and forth. I just we don't have the clearest floors.
Yeah. I have the same problem.
So yeah. Brian says,
well, that's true.
It feels that this conversation about cleaning before the robot cleans would make a good Seinfeld joke. That's true. Yeah, well, I mean, you're basically a cleaning person, and so you're like,
well, yeah, and it's not perfect either. So I mean, it's not getting all the edges by the baseboards and underneath the furniture and stuff like that. So I mean, you still have to do manual stuff. During
the show, you were talking about weed whacking, and I thought we were talking about robot vacuum cleaners, and I thought you were using that as a an example of having to vacuum around the
similar.
We're actually talking about the outside of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, like we have the robot vacuum go everywhere, but I mean, there's certain spots that it just doesn't get. Right. And so depending on how lazy it is, I'll just get a broom and kick it out in the middle of the room and then let the robot vacuum get.
Yeah. Justin says if they knock out 90% of the work, it's easier to do the 10%. Yeah, I don't know.
I agree. I'm with Justin on that one. I think that's the easiest thing because for me, it's the same thing with the lawn, right? I have to weed whack the lawn because obviously the robot lawnmower doesn't get everything, but I only do that like once a month.
Yeah,
it's when stuff gets a little bit longer and it's like, all right, I need to weed whack now. So
I'd have to change my habit is that's the weed whacking is the first thing I do. So Saturday I do Ask the Podcast Coach, and then I after the show's over, I grab a little lunch, and then I go out, grab the weed whacker, throw the battery in it. I weed whack around, and I have a pattern that I follow, and I weed whack around the whole yard, and then mow it, and then I'm done. And it's I don't know.
Which battery powered weed whacker do you have?
Black & Decker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just an average.
I bought something. I think it's like the Ego or whatever. I bought that on Amazon.
Yeah. I had a Black and Decker cord or a Black and Decker chainsaw.
Oh yeah.
And then I bought the tree saw or the pole saw so that I could trim. And then I was like, well, shoot, I might as well buy that one that's like the grip, it's got a chainsaw on it, but it's more like I don't know, it comes together like a cutting saw, whatever. And then I was like, well, I might as well buy a weed whacker that's got uses the same batteries, right? And then
the battery's the most expensive part, so
for sure.
Everything else after that is cheap.
Yeah. They're like $100,
Yeah.
Justin
like,
likes the Ego.
I want to get another battery for mine, but yeah, $100 to $200 for a battery. I'm like, my yard's not that big anyway. I'm fine.
No, I put slick deals in for those batteries. And then there's a whole underground counterfeit battery thing going on right now, like with DeWalt batteries. Like if they're too cheap, they're probably fake, right?
Yeah.
They're probably fake Chinese.
Same with Milwaukee too. So
Yeah.
Milwaukee has the same issue.
Right out. Justin says Ego for the win. He likes those, and you said your has treated you well. Kevin says Gator, and so I don't know why he said that.
Why not?
Get one of these? Yeah.
Want a Gator?
It is one of those things. I was following a thread the other day, and somebody's like, "Yeah, you got to be careful of these DeWalt batteries that are out there now because most of them are Chinese knockoffs. That if you're buying them on eBay or some of those kinds of things, they're knockoffs, and you're like, oh, geez, guess I have to be careful about where and how. You have a Menards.
Yeah,
I would get my Black
Menards.
and Decker battery at Menards. I would think.
Well, the biggest issue with those batteries too is that they're not the capacity that they say they are. And so I've bought knockoff batteries before for like Milwaukee tools and stuff like that, and they work fine. But whatever, they say they're 18,000 milliamps or whatever they are, and they're like half that. They're just they're not good quality cells and everything, so they usually work fine, but they're nowhere near as good as like a regular battery. Yeah. One thing that I've had good success on is just finding used deals for that kind of stuff. Because before one of the things that brought me to the robot lawnmower was I was going to buy an electric lawnmower. But by the time I bought an electric lawnmower and you buy the batteries and stuff, I was like $1,000 anyway. Yeah. And I was like, well, for $1,000, I can just get a robot lawnmower.
Yeah. Does it have a replaceable battery in it? Or
I don't think it's technically replaceable, but you can just take it apart and replace it. So
yeah.
That is one thing I'm worried about on this one specifically. It's a Segway one. And so I'm worried about the longevity of it. So
what in your mind, what do you think? How many years do you think right now, if I were to ask you, how long do you think this will last? What would you say?
I think if I'm being realistic, I would say 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like it's one of those things that it's going to degrade over time. Yeah, and, you can replace the blades. Like I just replaced the blades on it today. So there's some stuff you can replace, but it's electronics. It sits outside for half the year. So if I get 3 to 5 years on it, I think I'll be fine.
And you bring it in the winter for sure, right?
Yeah, I'm 100% going to.
Yeah. This is the first year you've had it. So
I mean, I just got it in May. Yeah. But yeah, I'll bring it inside in the wintertime. A lot of the other stuff, we don't really have a shed or anything, but I have a warehouse for my company. And so we just bring stuff to the warehouse and
you could even bring it in the house. I mean, it's not that big.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Bring it in. And would you leave the charging unit outside?
No, I think I'm gonna bring everything inside. Okay. It's got like a GPS antenna you have to stick in the yard and like the charging base and stuff like that. So might as well just bring it all in. The only thing that stinks is that it uses GPS for the mapping, and whenever you move it a little bit, you have to remap it. And so I'm gonna have to remap it every year when I'm bringing it in. But it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the drawback. I mean, plastic is not as when you subject plastic to negative temperatures, it does not do well.
Yeah.
And most of the plastics these guys are using are not very good.
Yeah.
That's why you can get, you get them as cheap as you do. So that's the kind of the thing. The other thing I think, well, one, I actually count the exercise that I get by mowing the lawn. I set my watch.
Peaceful too, you can put some headphones in and.
Yeah, well, and I love mowing my lawn so much that when I got an MRI a couple weeks ago, and I actually was sitting in the machine, I have a little claustrophobia, And so that MRI, you are literally,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like right on your eyes, right? I in my mind, I practiced mowing my lawn while I was in the MRI. I was like, okay, I'm pulling the cord, and then because I mow my lawn the same, not exactly the same, but very similar patterns. And so I was like, oh, I enjoy mowing the lawn so much. So it is one of those things. If I got a robot lawnmower, I would miss, sort of, but
Yeah.
in a way, it'd be satisfying to go out and watch it. Like,
Yeah.
do you get that satisfaction from watching it go do its thing?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it's I don't watch it do the backyard. I just let that do its thing in the morning or at nighttime. But in the front yard, it is kind of nice watching it, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's the cool
Yeah.
aspect as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's cool to have
Yeah.
this thing that just drives around your
Yeah.
yard cutting grass.
Yeah. No, this year in particular, there's been a couple times I've gone out and I've been like, dang, I should have, if I had a robot lawnmower, it would have already mowed it by now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had to.
Yeah, and these ones are so quiet. I mean, you can have it mow at night, like next to your bed, and you would have no idea.
Oh, for sure. No, it's just out.
We just have it going out at nighttime, and you don't even know.
Yeah.
It's got a little light on there, so if the light was off, you wouldn't know. But
no, right on. And do you know what your square footage is on your lawn?
I think it's only, we have a relatively small yard. What does it say on the app here?
3,000. So mine's small.
Oh yeah, mine's.
I could easily do now the front yard. I'm like you, although I live in a great neighborhood, so I wouldn't. I mean, we're in a middle class neighborhood, but I wouldn't. It's a great neighborhood, so I would not have any concerns about it running at night.
So this is. So I'm really awful with measurements and stuff. This says it's 422 meters squared.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, I don't. It's smaller feet wise,
but yeah, it's pretty small yard. So
yeah, no, that's how long does it take to
I mean, the backyard it takes like an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could have got I got the upgraded version because I was worried about the battery life on it. I could have got the smaller one. But yeah, in an hour it does the whole backyard.
And you bought it new?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim says he really likes the Ego mower. Caught the 4 model on sale for half off. Don't need a robot until teenagers move out. No, that's great.
Well, and you can find all kinds of good deals on the electric mowers and stuff, especially if you're paying attention to Facebook Marketplace and stuff. Because that's originally what I was going to do. You can buy just like an Ego push mower with a battery on Facebook Marketplace that's maybe 6 months old, or maybe it's open box, and it's half price.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Definitely some good deals out there for you.
Hey, if you're listening live, thanks for coming out tonight. Tim, good to see you. Justin, Kevin, Brian, Gavin, good to see you always. Gavin, it's probably time to have you back on. Appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I didn't see Ken tonight. John, I didn't see you either. And Tony, I didn't see you. I don't know where you guys are, but good to see you guys. We'll catch you back here next week. I think I got Jay Franzi coming back. He was supposed to be the power outage weekend or power outage week. And we'll have Jay next week. And then let's see, who else do I have? Oh, I got Christian right behind Jay. So come back and join us next week. We'll see you guys here. Thanks for coming out live. TJ, hang out for me 1 second. We'll see you guys next week. Take care, everybody.